One, two, three. Good morning from my home. I'm in a t-shirt, but it's gonna get cold tomorrow. So it's actually a little chilly today, so I might have to change. Anyhow, we got two films happening this week, two big films opening this week, or opening today in Hong Kong. Actually, there's a third one opening today, but I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna see it later today. So I might talk about it next week. I'll see. But two other big films opening today. Um, One is fairly good, and one is fairly bad. Let's start with the bad. This one is called Life Itself. And if you watch the TV show This Is Us, which I've never seen, but I hear it's good. People say they cry when what's his name? Milo Ventimiglia died. I think he's the one who died, although I hear he's back. I don't know how that happens, but yeah, people were upset. So if you like that series, you might be drawn to this one because it's written by the same guy, Dan Fogelman. And it's also a weepy one, but my opinion is what might work on the little screen doesn't necessarily work on the big one. So here's what this story is about, Life Itself. It's a saga about two families. One is in New York City, and the other is in beautifully sun-drenched Spain. Film very nice, gotta say. Whose paths intersect twice over a 21-year period. And in fact, the second intersection happens on the 21st anniversary of the first. At which point you're supposed to say, wow, isn't life strange? Or isn't life beautiful? Or isn't life interesting? Or something about life? I think, it's supposed to be, wow, one of these amazing moments. The story is divided into 5 chapters, and it's labeled as such because maybe we're too stupid to realize that there's another chapter coming. No, the reason is well, I'm not going to tell you the reason, but it's divided into 5 chapters and labeled, and it begins in present day Manhattan with Will, played by Oscar Isaac, who's in like Adam Driver, who's in everything these days. He was in Annihilation, Star Wars, two recent Star Wars films, Suburbicon, A Most Violent Year, Ex Machina, loved it. Inside Llewyn Davis, just to name a few films that I've talked about over a few years. So Will is on his way to see his therapist, played by Annette Bening, for some much needed and for some reason court mandated, though we don't know why, grief counseling. And even now that I've seen the movie, I'm thinking, why is it court mandated? If it needed to be court mandated, we're not told why. So anyhow, it's court mandated grief counseling. Because we soon learn in a voiceover by Samuel L. Jackson, who also plays himself in a cameo a couple minutes later, Will has lost his wife, the love of his life, Abby, played by Olivia Wilde, 6 months earlier in rather tragic circumstances, not long before she was due to give birth to their child. And as Will recounts that day, and also the days in college when he and Abby were not yet dating and then just dating, we're told by Jackson that both he, Jackson, and Will are unreliable narrators. This is a literary device where you can't trust what the person is saying or what you're being told. And so both of them are unreliable narrators. And this theme pops up over and over again because Abby, in fact, makes that her graduate thesis and blah, blah, blah. So, you think, okay, so this is really what the film's about. It's about unreliable narration. But tragedy strikes, and we move on to chapter 2, and that's the last we hear about unreliable narration. So I think, what was the point of that? It does come back at the end of the film, but by then the whole point is lost. So anyhow, so in chapter 2, it deals with Will and Abby's daughter Dylan, who is named after Bob Dylan because Abby loved his song "To Make Me Feel My Love," which has been covered a number of times by a few singers. I think Adele recently covered it, and so she loves that song. So they've decided to name the child Dylan. And we're told that little tidbit over and over and over. And we get to hear little snippets of the song over and over and over again. I guess Dan Fogelman liked the song. Okay. So over the next few minutes, and I really mean minutes, we watch Dylan growing up in Will's parents' house. Very nice house, by the way. And Will's parents are played by Mandy Patinkin from TV's Homeland and Jean Smart. Remember Jean Smart from TV's Designing Women? So Dylan grows up in their home, and we're treated to a new unreliable narrator. We actually don't know who that person is until the end of the film. And even more tragedy, because there's no shortage of tragedy in this film. There's even tragedy before the film starts that we're told about in narration, if it's reliable. I think it's reliable. So there's lots of tragedy in this film. So there's more tragedy, and I think we're supposed to cry a little bit more over characters that we really know very little about. I didn't cry, but I think that was the intent. And on Dylan's 21st birthday, which is set in the future, though we wouldn't know it because you don't see anything that indicates it's the future, the action moves to an olive grove in Andalusia, and this olive grove is owned and operated by a Mr. Sacchioni, played by Antonio Banderas, who gets to speak Spanish throughout, which is very nice. Not that his English is very nice, but nice to hear him speak his native language. And one day, Sacchioni notices that one of his workers, Javier, no, I don't speak Spanish, Javier, played by Sergio Perez Manchetta. It's funny, I'm sure I've seen him in something, but when I looked at his bio, I thought, I don't think I've seen him, but I'm sure I've seen him in something. I liked him in this film, actually. So he notices that Javier seems to take extra care with his olives, so he promotes the young man to foreman and provides him with free accommodation in his guest house. So with that, Javier marries the love of his life, Isabel, played by Laia Costa. Very good also. I like those two the best. And they live happily ever after until tragedy reaches their door as well. Not once, but twice, because there's no shortage of tragedy in this film. And as Javier and Isabel's son, Rodrigo, played by Alex Moner, never seen him before, Spanish actor, I assume, although he speaks English as well. As Rodrigo grows up over a matter of seconds again, we know that his fate and Dylan's fate are going to cross. That's all I'll say. Now, Fogelman, I think he might be a pro at getting audiences to cry over surprise, over tragic deaths of characters that they know quite well. They watch week in, week out over, a season, a couple of seasons. Here he's asking for the impossible. These characters are dying like this and over, rather tragically, and we barely know them and we barely care about them. And in fact, one character dies, and, to say that I cared about her, I barely cared about her, that would be an overstatement. Because she was a what was she? The person was strange, to say the least. Actually, if you see the trailer, you'll figure it out. But in the end, I gotta say, all this death becomes rather pornographic. It's like, there's food porn. This is death porn. This is tragedy porn. It's ridiculous. It's not good. It's pornographic. And maybe he just wanted to, maximize our tears. Guess what? It doesn't work. It doesn't work in the slightest. I didn't shed one tear. I didn't even come close to shedding a tear. It was horrible. And to compound the film's problems, the two halves of the film, the Manhattan half and the Spain half, they're totally out of sync with each other. Because Will and his family, they're quirky, they're brazen, they're lively, they're a little bit fun. I like, okay, mother's weird, but I liked her. So the first half of the film has that vibe to it. The second half, the Spaniards, they have their issues, but they're subdued, which is surprising, for Spaniards. They was subdued, and I have to say, and Antonio Banderas' character, he's very serious guy, because he has tragedy in his past as well, and he takes it quite seriously, takes life seriously. So the second half is rather calm. So you have like crazy, calm. it doesn't work. It's like oil and water. It just doesn't work. So, Fulton, when he tries to pull it off in the last chapter, in the final chapter, when he brings the whole thing together, and you're supposed to say, life is an unreliable narration. Ooh. But it falls flat for many reasons, and one of them, which just was like head scratching, the timeline. The timeline doesn't work. Rodrigo, the son of Javier and Isabel, should be about 6 years older than Dylan, the daughter of Will and Abby. And you'll find out, if you see the movie, you'll find out he should be about 6 years older. Yet, when their paths cross at the end of the movie, no great spoiler, their paths cross at the end of the movie, they're about the same age. Doesn't work, And plus, there's no mention of the day when they find out that their paths had previously intersected 21 years earlier. Maybe I'm giving away too much there. So, to me, that would be pretty important. That would be a big revelation. If that was me, I would say, wow, and not wow in a good way. It's like, wow, how do I get out of here? Wow. So, didn't work. Now, critics, forget about me for a second, critics are nearly unanimous in their loathing of this film. Some of them calling it one of the worst films he's seen this year. I won't go that far. Audiences are liking it, though. It's very interesting. I think the audiences that are liking it are the ones who watch This Is Now, and they love a good cry, and they're being roped in by this one. I don't know. One of my friends even wrote on my Facebook page. She liked the last 20 minutes. I hated the last 20. The last 20 minutes was BS. It was so manipulative in a bad way. Well, is manipulation ever good? But it was really bad. So, you know what? I'm solidly with the critics on this one. I don't say it's the worst film I've seen this year. I have to really think about what are the worst films. There are a few. This one's certainly in the... I think if there was a bottom 10, this would be in the bottom 10. Not because of bad acting. The acting was very good, but it was a complete waste of its all-star cast. And it was so mawkish. And it was mawkish. Mawkish. That's my word. Mawkish. And if you see in the trailer, it's terribly misleading. And I hate that too. It's like, come on. If you don't like the film, don't make a good trailer to try to fool us. Well, that's called marketing, baby. So if there is one thing I could say good about the film, it's that Antonio Banderas is filmed in very nice light. He looks great. So I thought The Light in Andalusia, and it was filmed in Spain apparently. The Light in Andalusia is beautiful. So it was shot very well. I didn't actually write down who the cinematographer was, but he or she was very good, at least in Spain. So that's about the only good thing I can say about this film. I don't want to say I hated this film because I didn't hate it. There are films that I've hated. I just thought this just rings so false. It's mawkish. It's one of my friends here in Hong Kong called it self-important. Yeah, okay. It's like Dan Fogelman is saying, I've made you cry for a couple scenes on This Is Now. Here I'm going to make you cry again. You know what? Maybe he had this idea because it is framed like a book, and maybe if it were a book, it would be a better book. But as a movie, oh God. So you know what? If you waste your time, if you spend your time, if you spend your time to go see this money, spend your money to go see this money, and you hate it, please don't come crying to me. I've warned you about this one. Awful, awful film. So now let's get to the better. And the better is Widows, which also has an all-star cast. And it's the latest film by Steve McQueen, who his film 12 Years a Slave won Best Picture a few years back. So he's got an Oscar sitting on his mantle somewhere. This film, okay, I'll get to it. But I got to say, I enjoyed this film. Didn't love it, enjoyed it. And the reason why I didn't love it is because I figured it out way too early. Way too. After, I'd say about 10 minutes into the film, I figured it out. Because there's like this gotcha moment, I figured it out. But having said that, okay, you know what? I didn't sit there cross-armed going, okay, when's this going to end? I enjoyed it because, again, good performances, really good performances, especially by a few. I'll get to them in a bit. And I thought the camera work um, was very thoughtful. You know, this was a very thoughtful movie, both the writing and the camera work. So you know, I like this film. So here's basically the bottom line for this film. This is everything that Ocean's 8 wasn't, but should have been. In other words, it was thoughtful. It was intelligent. It didn't rely on women dressing to the max and posing for the camera. This was really good acting. This was really good directing. So the story is Veronica, played by Viola Davis, who was in Fences and The Help and lots of other things, wonderful actress, and Harry Rawlings, who's played by Liam Neeson. Everybody knows Liam Neeson. They're living the good life, but we learn very early on that surface appearances can be deceptive, because Harry is a career thief, and he's been very good at it over the years, judging from their upscale Chicago penthouse that they live in. But Harry's luck runs out when his latest heist goes very wrong, and it leaves Veronica and the wives of Harry's crew as widows, hence the title. So these women, who include Linda, played by Michelle Rodriguez from the Fast and Furious franchise, and she was also in the TV show Lost, hated her in that role. Alice, played by Elizabeth Debicki, who was in and will be in the next Guardians of the Galaxy film. I actually don't remember her in the film. She must have had a pretty small part. She's got a pretty big part here. So her name is Elizabeth Debicki, played a character named Alice. And Amanda, played by Carrie Coon, who had a small part in The Post. They could have gone on with their lives, except their husbands really screwed them over. And including Veronica, because Harry apparently had $2 million of Jamal Manning's money. And Jamal Manning's played by Brian Tyree Henry from the TV show Atlanta. So he had $2 million of Jamal Manning's money, and the inner city crime boss wants it back. And Manning even sends his hitman brother, Jatem. Sounds like Jatem. Jatem. I never not familiar with a name like Jatem, but anyhow, played by the wonderful Daniel Kaluuya. So Manning sends his brother Jatem over to Veronica's house to let her know just how serious he is about getting that money back. He puts a timeline on her, and he says he wants it back. But Jamal, meanwhile, has other problems to deal with. He's running for alderman in one of the city's poorest districts against Jack Mulligan, played by Colin Farrell. And Jack is the son of Tom Mulligan, played by Robert Duvall. Tom Mulligan is the man who's been that district's alderman for 30 years and has profited quite handsomely in that time, diverting government money his way. He's been on the take all these years, with government contracts and skimming off the top and whatnot. They've lived a very nice life thanks to the government. So neither Jack nor his father Tom intends to give up that power without a good fight. So, you have this city of tough guys with big ambitions. They're all jockeying for position, and there's Veronica. But you know what? Veronica shows that she can be just as tough and just as ambitious. And when she finds the plans for Harry's next heist, she calls the other widows together to pull it off and get their lives back. So that's what this story is about. Now, if this sounds vaguely familiar to you, it's because the screenplay, which was co-written by Steve McQueen and Gillian Flynn, who wrote Gone Girl, it's based on a British TV miniseries of the same name from the 1980s. And fans of the series say that this film doesn't compare to that. I haven't seen it. I can't comment. I don't know. I should actually check it out. They did 2 seasons of it. And then, they did 2 seasons. One in 1983, one in 1985 or something like that. So regardless of whether this film is better or worse, I think this film, it features, as I said, great performances from this all-star cast, and especially from Robert Duvall, who at age 87 shows that age is just a number. I mean, good for him. 87, amazing. Probably filmed it when he was 86, but, not bad. Quite good, actually. But I think it's the film's 2 relative unknowns, Debicki and Cynthia Erivo. Erivo plays a woman by the name of Belle. She's the group's getaway driver. They are the real standouts of the film. I think this is really going to make Debicki a star. So I think, great. And for Eriva, we're going to be seeing her again in a few weeks' time, here in Hong Kong at any rate, in a film called Bad Times at the El Royale. I think it's coming in about 2, 3 weeks. So we get to see her again. So to me, those two were the real standouts amongst all these, big name actors. These two relative unknowns were really the highlights of this film. Now, to be fair, the film runs slightly on the slow side. There were a couple times I almost looked at my watch, didn't quite. It was like close. But I think McQueen he manages to keep it interesting with, as I said, smart camera work. There's one scene where they're in the limo with Colin Farrell's limo with or the character with Veronica, and you hear them talk, but you're seeing the neighborhood. And just if you do see this film, watch that scene because it's very, very well done. You know, I talked about Black Klansman recently, and although I liked the film, I thought it was too, it was okay. Spike Lee wanted it to be like this, but it was too in your face. The message that he wanted. This one's got a similar message, but it's not like this at all. It's very subtle, very well done. I liked it. Very good. And also there was a few twists in the film. One of them, the big one, which I figured out after about 10 minutes. But if you do get bored watching this film, here's something you can do. You can count how many times Colin Farrell's accent changes. I counted 5 times. Now, let's be honest with you. Let's be honest about this. His character was probably well educated. He didn't need to sound like Jimmy Cagney, like, oh, you dirty yellow, I want to say, oh, you dirty rat, except Jimmy Cagney didn't say that. What did he say? Something about you dirty yellow-bellied rat or something like that. But let's make it simple. Oh, you dirty rat. This is how Colin Farrell sounded at the start of the film. He probably went to a really good school, Ivy League. He didn't need to sound like that. And the trouble is, to make it even worse, he didn't sound like that through the whole film. He only sounded like that in parts of the film. Other parts he had a Boston accent. Other parts he had this like flat mid-Atlantic accent, trying to tamp down his Irish. Thankfully, both he and Liam Neeson did not sound Irish in the film. But he couldn't hold his Chicago accent, or even the Chicago accent that he did have wasn't the right Chicago accent. So there's something to keep you interesting. But all in all, I like this film. As I said, good acted, well acted, good direction, thoughtful camera work, and it's a welcome change from male-oriented films of this genre. And it's a huge step up from Ocean's 8. So I'd say check it out. And if you do so, watch out for Lucas Haas. Remember Lucas Haas? He was a little boy in Witness. He's grown up. I was like, I'm watching this actor going, why does he look familiar? And then it occurred to me, even before the credits, because Lucas Haas has a very interesting face. And, now you'll know who it is. So he's grown up. I think he's what, like 42 now or something like that. Good for him. He's still acting. So that's my vote for this week is Widows. Go see it. Life Itself. Don't waste your money unless you're a masochist. And tonight I'm seeing Mortal Engines. This is Peter Jackson's produced film. I think he actually wrote it. He didn't direct it. I'm seeing that one tonight, so I can't talk about it. It also opens today. Don't know anything about it. So that's it. And I'm off to the Macau Film Festival, International Film Festival this weekend. Going to see some good films. I'm seeing Green Book. Want to see that. The Favorite. Also want to see that. And Shadow. And All Good. That's what I'm seeing this weekend. 4 films. So, yeah, if you're there. Oh, and I'm going to see Nicolas Cage. Everybody says he's my doppelganger. Maybe I'll take a selfie of the two of us together so we can finally put that one to rest or not. Should be interesting. I don't know that I have the nerve to ask him, hey, everybody thinks I look like you. So, we'll see what happens. Okay, have a good weekend. See you.